I've lived most of my life working as a creative. To find inspiration each day is my quest. I do that by turning to nature, like running through a field with the wind in my hair. Actually, I start like this. Being in a creative career means needing to find inspiration pretty much every single day, even when you don't feel like it. But there are a lot of days where you're just not feeling it. I've found that the best way to deal with that is to just go do the work. And usually if you're doing that and not freaking out about not having some sparkly ray come from the sky and give you an idea, that you will actually find the inspiration by just doing the work. As the great author Jack London once said, you can't wait for inspiration. You have to go after it with a club. The next thing I want to talk about... Ooh, I got some likes on Instagram. Stop the distractions. A study by the University of California, Irvine found that for every distraction and interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get back to the thought or task at hand. And it's not just about the distraction, it's about all that time afterwards getting back to your task, because that adds up. If you get distracted 4 times in one day, you've lost over an hour and a half of inspired creative time. You might be spending more time trying to get back to your original inspiration than living in that space. So, turn the ringer on your phone down, turn off your notifications. Hell, put the phone in another room and tell everyone in your house that under no circumstances are you to be interrupted unless the house is burning down or there's an alien invasion happening in your front yard.
Daddy, there's an alien invasion happening in the front yard.
Now, sometimes having the quiet and space around you just isn't giving you anything. And it makes me think of this period of time at my other studio, The Zone, where I was working there a lot, and I had another producer working upstairs in my B room doing a bunch of EDM music, and I could hear it coming through the floor, a little bit of the bass and drums. It would just be really obnoxious, and he would come down and be like, "Hey man, I've done 2 beats today already, hey man." And the funny thing is I found after a while that it actually kind of drove me to work harder. And even though I was working on a different type of music, it gave me a lot of ideas. It actually kind of spurred me on, kind of broke me out of my shell in this empty place that I was in. So if being alone isn't really doing it for you, find some other creatives to be around, or perhaps a really obnoxious EDM producer to barge in once in a while. Are you having a hard time coming up with good ideas? Perhaps you're suffering from inspiration dysfunction. Then you should try Oblique Strategies. Oblique Strategies is actually a deck of cards that was created in 1975 by Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt. And for those of you who don't know who Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt are, Brian Eno is a pioneer of ambient music. He produced records for the Talking Heads, U2, Devo, Ultravox, and co-produced many great albums with Daniel Lanois. Peter Schmidt was an artist, painter, color and composition theorist, and an influential teacher at Watford College of Art. Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt were good friends who spent a lot of time talking about the creative process. And specifically, what do you do when you get stuck or you have writer's block? Each of them had a different set of ideas and tools and things that they would do to get through that. And they thought, wow, why don't we put these on a deck of cards and sell them so that people could, when they get stuck, just pull a card out and there'd be one of these ideas on there. I originally heard about these deck of cards from Rick Beato back when I was working with him in the late 90s or early 2000s, and I wanted to buy one, but at that time, they were not for sale. They had gone out of print and become collector's items. So I went online and found all the phrases that they had and added a few of my own, and I had my wife, Crystal, make me a deck of cards and this box, so when I got stuck, or I was working with a band and we got stuck, we could pull out a magic card and see what it said. Let's see what some of these say. Let's check it out. Give way to your worst impulse. Turn it upside down. Disciplined self-indulgence. Use fewer notes. Courage. I like that one. Man, I need that one sometimes. Be less critical. More often. Change instrument roles. I liked that. That's cool. You don't have to be ashamed of using your own ideas. Once the search is in progress, something will be found. Make a sudden, destructive, unpredictable action. Incorporate. Towards the insignificant. Cluster analysis. Simple subtraction. Decorate. Decorate. Only one element of each kind. I like that. I need that. I'm always trying to put too much stuff in the production. Don't be afraid of things because they're easy to do. That took me a long time to really understand. Is it finished? And man, these are just a few of them. Like, I'll pull out the box like, okay, that's what's remaining. There's a bunch in here. And I think everybody uses them a different way. Sometimes I think some people think you're just supposed to pick one card. I'll pick a few till I find one I think's appropriate because some of the stuff is just so wacky, it doesn't make any sense, you know? So for those of you who are interested, Brian Eno is selling these again. You can buy the cards online. You can also download an Android or iPhone app. And if you want to print your own, you can get a PDF. I'm going to leave links to all of those in my description. And remember, if you're ever experiencing any kind of creative block or inspiration dysfunction, you can always turn to Oblique Strategies. Users of Oblique Strategies may experience flashes of inspiration, altered perspective, lateral thinking, sweaty palms, hesitancy to leave the studio, random ideas, sudden changes of direction, pleasant surprises, and new insight. Consult with your doctor before trying anything this cool. Now, one of the best things you could do to really jumpstart inspiration and new creative ideas is to surround yourself with people way more creative than you. Now, that could backfire. If you don't have the right kind of ego or confidence, it could make you feel like you suck. Now, I spent the first 10 years of my career kind of being the star of my little circle. It wasn't until I got into my 30s that I started getting around some really great talent, and that's when the growth began. So if you think you can handle it, find people that are better than you, hang out with them. You're going to learn so much. Try it. This isn't about how to find inspiration as much as it is about something that inspired me. I once had a dinner meeting with the author Lauren Oliver, who wrote Panic, the Delirium Trilogy, and Before I Fall. And she told me that she'd written her first book, Before I Fall, on her BlackBerry while going to meetings and work on the subway. I mean, I guess it'd be nice to have a cabin and the space and time to be alone and write a novel. But when you don't have that, you find a way or you make a way. So listen to other people's stories. It's a great place to find a ray of light. Another idea that was told to me by my friend Jeremy Garrett from the infamous String Dusters is to get in your car and drive around and turn on the radio so you can just barely hear it above the sound of the engine and the sound of the wind. And it's surprising when you don't really know what song it is, you just barely hear it there. It'll kind of spur up new ideas for melodies and rhythms and patterns and all sorts of things like that. And it's also good because it gets you out of the studio or your workspace, which leads me to my next thing. Get out into the world. Sometimes sitting there staring at your notebook, canvas, or computer screen isn't doing you any good. So, go for a walk in town. Go ride a bike. Or go for a hike. Sit in a cemetery. Or go to the beach. Slide down a slide. Go! So quit being such a hermit and get out in the world once in a while. Does pressure inspire or crush creativity? There's an old saying that goes, work or a task will expand to fill the time allotted for it. Having unlimited time to create is not always such a great thing. Now, some of my best work has been done under intense pressure with a short timeline. I just had to pull something out of my ass. Now, I heard this story about Elton John and how he writes songs. His lyricist, Bernie Taupin, would come in with a stack of lyrics, and Elton John would put them up on the piano, and he'd start on that first one. But if he didn't come up with a good idea in 15 or 20 minutes, he'd just toss it. And I guess the thought is, if it's too hard, maybe it's not something you should mess with. Now, I've found that for me, it's important to have a clear objective, whether it's for a client or a specific piece of music that I'm trying to create and make for something specific. Just open-ended creation with no guidelines or goals just has me going in circles and usually not completing much. So remember, time limits, guidelines, and objectives are important. Now, if you're really stuck, just try copying somebody. I mean, isn't that how we all started? Now, I'm not saying totally rip somebody off, but there's only 12 notes after all. I mean, what's that old saying? Good artists borrow, great artists steal. If you're good, you're going to make it your own anyway. So it's okay to snatch an idea from here or there. Besides, everybody's doing it, even if they don't realize it. The last thing I've got to say about finding inspiration is not some advice I can give you. It's only to remind you to remember why you got into this in the first place. I mean, what was your youthful inspiration that led you down this path? I also think that it's important that there's something in your life that's always there, like a wellspring that you can draw upon. For me, it's my dad. I'm sitting in front of his greatest creation. We call this the little house. My dad was a master craftsman, woodworker, and artist. He was also a soldier. 2 tours of Vietnam, a career military man. He designed and made this place by himself. The hand-carved hearts and flowers above the doors, the inlaid woodwork, the pictures which he sold at fairs, the spiral staircase. It's incredible. What I got from him, and I use every single day, was how he blended creativity and discipline like no one I've ever known. He accomplished a lot. Remember your youthful inspiration and find your wellspring.